I do work the day job, so
Yeah.
I got X amount of hours in a week that I can allocate towards my dream. I treat my side business like it's my full-time business. It's a full-time grind in my mind, so there's really no time to pump the brakes and feel sorry for myself.
Hi, my name is Trevor Carlson, and I'm host of The Formula, where we break down and explore the elements of health, wealth, and happiness with guests from all over the world. And today, I have a good friend of mine here to discuss imposter syndrome.
What's going on? My name is Scotty Russell, and I create under the name Perspective Collective, where I do lettering, illustrations, public speaking, and I am the host of the weekly podcast, Perspective Podcast. Let's get into this.
Let's do it.
All right.
This episode of the Formula Podcast is brought to you by Athletic Greens. Athletic Greens is a daily green supplement that comes in the mail. It's a subscription-based product where one scoop is your daily Athletic Greens. Now, if you know me, I've been drinking green shakes almost every day for the last couple years, and recently just got started on Athletic Greens. And it's pretty awesome because all you do is you take the scoop and you put it in your blender bottle or your shaker, and you have your daily advised greens right in one bottle of water. So I highly recommend checking out Athletic Greens. If you check out the show notes or head over to our website, The Formula Podcast, you can check out our sponsored products there. Now, our second product for the day that this episode is brought to you by is a product called Lady Boss. And Lady Boss is a women's supplement company that they have all kinds of products, right? And now I'm sure you're probably thinking, Trevor, you've never taken Lady Boss. It's a women's supplement company. You're right, I haven't, but I know a few people who have. I'm working on getting them on the show to share their experience taking this product, so they can give you their opinion and their experience taking Lady Boss. Now, if you'd like to check out Lady Boss or look at any of their products that they have, you can check out our show notes or head over to theformulapodcast.com and check out our sponsored products there. Now, back to the show. Scotty, thanks for being a guest on the show this week. And now we're here today to talk about imposter syndrome. What does imposter syndrome mean to you?
All right. So for me, imposter syndrome is what I deal with all the time, and I'm learning that's just all a part of the daily grind, part of the process and the growth. So for me, imposter syndrome is when you don't feel qualified with what you're putting into the world, whether that's content or some type of video, entertainment, whatever it is you're trying to put in the world, but you don't feel like you're worthy enough, especially when you're wrapped up in comparison and seeing what other people are doing.
Yeah. Is that kind of the feeling that you get when you're like, I could go work on editing my podcast, writing my blog, working on that piece of art, and you're like, I'm just gonna like watch Netflix or something like that, or you're like, it's not quite feeling it.
Yeah, I feel it the most when I am creating work, especially if like I'm doing client work at the time and you get lost mindlessly scrolling in your feeds and you just see other people just crushing it for massive corporations or people with the big bucks, and I'm just over here. Maybe it's just a mom and pop or something local, and some bigger names. But then other times it's definitely with the podcast. So when I see other massive people with massive names on the show getting thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads per episode, and that's when I kind of just feel like I'm in someone else's shadow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what are the causes of imposter syndrome? Maybe you can give me some examples of what you've seen, because on your show you talk a lot about it, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty open. I am a fan of having conversations that most people don't want to have, the hard topics, and this is definitely one of them. This and the comparison trap, for sure. So, what causes it?
Yeah.
I think overthinking, especially as an artist, you're always your own worst art critic. And that is me ever since, I was young. I didn't even share that I drew until I was like 20 as a junior in college. I kept it to myself. I was a closet artist, because, I grew up getting bullied and picked on like you said you did too. So I didn't want to give more ammunition to someone to try and tear me down. So I kept it to myself. I just had a sketchbook with me all the time. And so, I kind of always grew up thinking that I wasn't good. And now it just kind of lives in the back of me. That little fourth grader got bullied still wants to tear me down. But, it's about doing things when they're not convenient. So if I want to chill and go watch some Netflix and kick it with my cats and my wife, I realize, can I swear on this?
Yeah, you can swear.
I realize shit's got to get done. So, and I do work the day job. So, I got X amount of hours in a week that I can allocate towards my dream. I treat my side business like it's my full-time business. It's a full-time grind in my mind. So there's really no time to pump the brakes and feel sorry for myself.
Yeah. So basically what you're saying is because of some previous life experience or maybe comparing to other people that, they could be years along farther than you, right? Like comparing to other people's highlight reel maybe causes you to get some of that imposter syndrome where if they're, I definitely get it too, where you look at someone else, you're like, damn, they got how many downloads?
Yep.
I'm like, man, or you
how many followers they have,
and you listen to some of the stuff they're talking about or what they're accomplishing, and you're like, man, I haven't done anything like that.
Yeah, true. That's definitely it. So, I mean, for me, it's definitely feeling like you're in the shadow of what someone else is doing, and maybe they're already doing it better. Comparison trap is definitely something I want to talk even more about, because while we get so wrapped up in what we strive to be what someone else is doing, we lose sight of the people who would give anything to have what we've had. We lose sight of what we've accomplished in life. And, I'm big on, hoarding your victories, because you lose sight and, kind of beat yourself up, and one little mishap or one little setback, can bring you down. So like it's important to celebrate all those small wins, big or small. And for me, that looking back and seeing that you're making progress, that's huge in order to combat it, especially the imposter syndrome. And I feel like if you're feeling like an imposter, you're on the right track.
Damn.
So that's part of it. That's fuel.
So that's almost like I always use the word like compass, like if you're going the right way or not.
Internal compass, yeah.
Yeah. So if you're feeling like an imposter, you're feeling like, maybe you don't belong or not quite good enough, that's kind of telling you that you're on the right track or you're doing something that you're supposed to be. Oh,
definitely.
Yeah. So we're talking a lot about the comparison trap. Tell me what the comparison trap is.
It's when you get so wrapped up and paralyzed by what everyone else is doing that you lose sight of what you're doing. The things that you're capable of. You focus too much on things you can't control, like the outside world, instead of focusing what's in your circle of influence, like the 7 habits of highly effective people, 7 habits, yeah. So, focusing on what you can control, what's in your circle of influence, and in the comparison trap was when you focus on those things outside of it. And that's so easy to do because people live such a curated life. We're such a digital world in a social media age, an era where, people only post their highlights. And so when you only see the highlights, you start thinking that your life is shit because, you don't have as awesome of things to post. Like I see people traveling to these massive conferences and giving massively paid keynotes, or they get to do mural installations at big events, or they were crushing the biggest clients. And me, I'm just this little dude from Iowa, just small fish in a pond trying to make a name for myself. And that's where you can get paralyzed, and to the point where you are scared to try in the first place, or you don't want to stick it out and persevere because what's the point? You'll never get to their level. So to me, that's the trap.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of those things where the more time that you spend on Instagram or social media following this stuff, especially if you're in the grind, right? And especially when you're on, I've listened to your show a bunch of times. What do you call it when things go downhill?
The funk?
Yeah, when you're in the funk and you look at that stuff, I'm sure that makes that comparison trap much easier to fall in.
Yeah, when you're to me, Instagram, social media, Dribble, Behance, all these platforms, they're tools. And you use these tools to your advantage. They can be sources of inspiration, but when you spend too much time consuming instead of producing, 1% out there in the world, I feel, is like the producers. We're the creators of the world, while everybody else is a consumer. And when you start spending more time consuming than producing, I think you're setting yourself up to easily slip into those funks.
Yeah.
So you have to monitor, are you on your phone right now for using it as a tool to your advantage, or are you letting yourself consumed and be influenced by what everyone else is doing? And so that there's a fine line of what is too much, so be intentional.
Yeah.
Pretty much about everything you do, wake up and just be intentional, especially if you have a day job.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional because you only have X amount of time in a week to do your thing. So
yeah, the more finite your resources, especially time,
Yeah.
the more intentional you have to be with it.
exactly.
Yeah. So let's assume that you're in the funk and you're dealing with some imposter syndrome or you're in the comparison trap. How do you work through it?
How I work through it. Okay, so I live by a motto. We've talked about this before, and I'm a pizza junkie, and it's been a huge influence in my life ever since Ninja Turtles and Home Alone, Macaulay Culkin.
What was your favorite Ninja Turtle?
Michelangelo.
Oh, okay.
Come on, man.
Okay. I mean, I was gonna say if you said anything else, you had bad taste. But...
Yeah. But and Macaulay Culkin, Home Alone, lovely cheese pizza just for me. But so I live by this motto because I grew up like people pleasing is you can't make everyone happy. You are not pizza. And I think that's when you fall victim to comparison trap. That's when fall victim to imposter syndrome is when you're trying to please everyone. You want everyone to love you, love your work, love your product, your services, whatever it is that you put into this world. And so that is a daily reminder to myself. It's fun, it's easy, it speaks to me. I think we all need kind of those mottos in life, and that's what really resonates with me, lights a fire under my ass. Like, okay, get your shit together. You're spending time too much feeling sorry for yourself or worrying about what everyone else is doing. Like, go out there, put your own spin on things. Stop trying to, think how can you make your work look more like this person's when you can just be you. And the more you put yourself into your work, the more I think you begin to stand out and rise above the noise. So that's how I would combat it. Is that's the daily reminder, the motto.
Yeah.
I think we need that. We need something that can, snap us back into the moment.
So if I asked you for 3 tactical steps, what would they be?
To get out of the funk.
Mm-hmm.
1, get off your damn phone. Go do something that makes you feel good about yourself. Like for me, it's the gym. That's my sanctuary because I grew up a little chunker, a little chunky kid, and got made fun of and picked on and bullied. So go break away, unplug, go get lost in something like to do hiking, play sports, shit, go knit and croquet if that lets you get in your zone, whatever. And 3, remind yourself why you enjoyed doing it in the first place. And usually that's like when you were a kid, you just drew for no reason. We didn't have social media growing up. So I was only creating work that my parents would like and hope it would get on the fridge, and it always did, So, I just enjoyed it. I'd get lost in my room for hours just drawing aliens, grim reapers, and dragons, and drawing, that funky little S.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I was really good at that fancy S. But remind yourself of why you got into it in the first place. Get off your phone and go find another outlet. I think those would be the 3 off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think those are 3. I mean, personally, I can...
It applies to every industry, not just the creative business world that I operate in.
Yeah, I mean, I can second all of those because it's very easy to shit's going south. You pull out your phone, pull out Instagram, you start scrolling through, and you're like, oh man, this person just did this monstrous mural. I'm like, yeah, mural.
Yeah.
Mule. Mural.
I mean, they could do a mule mural while
They
drinking
could.
a Moscow Mule.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
They could.
Yeah, we could turn this into something.
Yeah, we could. Maybe a rap. I don't know.
I gotta ask you then, how do you get out of your funk?
It's 2 scenarios. 1 is if I wake up in a funk, and 2 is if I'm in a funk during the day. So if I wake up in a funk, it's ice cold shower. I usually get in. I like hot showers in the morning, so I usually turn it up way up.
The normal human thing.
Yeah. So you get in the shower, steam's rolling off of you, right? And then before you get out, you're just those mornings when you're just in a bad spot. You're just stressed. You got all kinds of stuff on your mind. You just take that dial and you just start breathing and crank it all the way to cold. and you just stay in as long as you can.
And that makes you have a better day.
Because if you can survive that, you can handle pretty much any of the other shit that comes your way.
Okay. That's a new one. Haven't heard that.
It knocks you out of your head completely.
So if it's pouring rain out and it's freezing,
yeah,
is that basically like you take a walk and in a cold shower so you kill two birds with one stone?
I've never tried that.
All right.
That's a really good idea.
Right,
It's been rainy and hot out, so that doesn't quite work, but maybe you get cold in the rain. I don't know.
Yeah.
So yeah, cold showers in the morning, and then going for a walk. No phone, no company, or if it is company, it's just someone that's just gonna listen. I typically don't want someone to be like giving me advice on what to do or especially I don't want anybody criticizing me more at that point. It's just gonna like make it worse. So either someone to listen or just go on a walk, and then I write it out.
Yeah, okay, that's a good one.
Yeah, I guess
I would similarly do the same if there's something that's like bugging me, that I know other people could find value in, then it turns into a blog post and a podcast episode. So it's like diary journaling, but repurposing the content.
Yeah, I do a really weird thing. So I don't think I've ever told anyone this before. So when I journal and I'm having like something is stressing me out, or it's like a problem I can't solve, or I'm just not feeling 100. I'll have like I'll have like a conversation with myself on a piece of paper. So I'll write a question, and then I'll write my answer, and then I'll write a follow-up question. I just keep going back and forth until I just ask myself the right questions to get to the answer that I feel like is the right way to approach this situation.
Interesting.
Yeah. I don't know how I ever came up with that, but I found it to be really helpful, because the thing is like, I feel like everyone already knows the right answer, or like knows what to do next. They just have some imposter syndrome or fear or something.
An obstacle.
That's keeping them from doing it. But when you phrase it as a question to answer, especially on paper, it makes it harder to hide behind anything else.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And also getting like a nice workout in too.
Yeah.
That
helps everything.
Yeah. Yeah. I would agree with you 100% on that.
Yep.
All right, so let's say that someone's listening to this episode, either in your audience or mine, and they're going through the funk, they're having problems with imposter syndrome, they're stuck in the comparison trap, and they start trying to work through some of the solutions we discussed, but it can be really frustrating. Even if like you go to the gym, sometimes you still don't feel the best afterwards.
Yeah.
So what advice do you have to someone who's like starting to climb their way out of that?
All right, yeah, I have plenty advice, but one thing specifically. So this isn't things you can just like snap out immediately. Maybe once in a while you can. Maybe the shower will knock you out of it. Maybe the gym will get those endorphins flowing and get you back ready on track. But other times it can be seasons or phases. And, I've dealt with that where you just feel like shit for, I've gone periods of like a month or two, just in a funk where, I don't feel like I'm getting the attention or the eyes on my work that I deserve. I'm busting my ass and, no one sees it. Or it's just not as good as I think it could be compared to someone else. But it may sound cheesy, but, I was one who like literally would build everything up inside of me, and it would tear me down and make things worse and make it impossible to climb out of a dark spot. So for me, it's talking it out, whether it's like talking it out on paper, but for me, I have to like seek out, I'm big about surrounding myself with like-minded people who I trust, who can listen. And for me, that's been big, is being able to talk it out in, in close with close people who I know won't judge, safe zones. So, and letting people know, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is how I'm attempting to respond. If they have something to say, they don't. Otherwise, I open back up on like a podcast or a blog post and I just put it out there. So for me, it's about getting it out there and transparent, not being worried about what someone's going to think about it, because people are going to judge. That's their fault. You can't be pizza. Everyone's not going to like you or accept you, and that sucks to hear, but it's just the facts at the end of the day. So, I make sure to get things out after spending the first 20 something years of my life not doing it.
Yeah.
So that's been big for me.
Yeah.
Vent sessions.
Yeah.
Get some brewskis.
Some brewskis and
Yep.
get it out.
Yep.
That reminds me of I ended up, well, to date, it's like the most popular blog post I wrote, and it was probably one of the hardest ones, and that was like, I just turned 30, and I was like, man, I feel like I should have something really smart to say because I just turned 30. And I tried for like a month to write something, and I hated everything I wrote. I'm like, this just sounds like preachy BS, you know? So I was just like, all right, who would need this advice the most? And I was like, well, and who do I know the best? I'm like, well, my 18-year-old self was a complete train wreck, right? That's probably a little bit of an exaggeration, but you know, I could have used the advice then. So I wrote it to that person using very specific examples of things that happened, or like I think I wrote 30 pieces of advice for my 18-year-old self, and you know, I had over like 100 people shoot me DMs saying like, oh my God, like this just really hit home. Yeah. And I was like, I didn't even think it was good. Like I just wrote it to that person and I put it out there because it was something that I was like struggling with when I was 18. And when I was 30, I had just some different perspectives on it. So I think that makes a lot of sense to share that message when you do struggle with it.
I think everything I'm creating is literally to the person who was lost 5 years ago. That's like literally who I'm creating for, with the intention of who I'm trying to be in 10 years. You know, do something that my future self can be like, damn, dude, good shit, man.
Yeah.
Thank you for setting me up for this. So that's how I approach it. Yeah. So imposter syndrome, comparison trap, it's all part of the growth, man.
Yeah.
It's the grind, the climb.
Absolutely. And it's like you say, every setback is an opportunity for a comeback.
Yep.
Well, Scotty, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and chat with me. If anybody wants to check out any of your stuff, or if you have any final words, go ahead, it's all you.
All right, you can find me online at perspective-collective.com. You can find the podcast at perspectivepodcast.com, and Instagram, everything's going to be set up from there. So connect with me, follow my art, and get a fire lit under your ass every Wednesday at 5 a.m. Cool.
All right, thanks, Scotty.
All right, homie. Peace.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is a wrap for this show. Thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Trevor Carlson, and I appreciate you taking the time to stop by, and whether it's viewing our episodes or listening to our podcast or reading our blog posts, all of you guys really help keep this show going. So I much appreciate your time and attention, and hopefully we provided a little bit of value for you. Now, if you're interested and you think you might enjoy getting some blog posts, emails, other podcasts, guides, any of that sort of thing sent to your inbox every week, go ahead and head over to theformulapodcast.com and sign up for our email list today. That's a wrap for this week's show. Thanks again, everyone, for stopping by, and I look forward to you tuning in next time.